Everyone, thanks for joining us and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Matt Glazer and I'm a product manager here at eMoney. I'm also joined by my colleague Aaron Derryberry, who is a live training specialist. Today we'll be showing you Foundational Planning, our newest planning solution that's designed to help you deliver more plans to more clients. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. Everyone on this call will be muted, but throughout the presentation you can ask questions using the Q&A tab to the right of your screen. We've also reserved time at the end of the presentation to answer questions, and we'll get through as many as we can. Today's webinar will also be recorded, and a copy will be emailed to you next week. During today's presentation, we'll be showing you how foundational planning can ultimately help you streamline and scale your planning needs to improve the client experience. Aaron will provide us with a demo to show you an overview of how to create a plan using foundational planning. And she'll also highlight some of the key differences between our existing advanced planning capabilities and foundational planning. As you're all aware, financial planning is increasingly a primary source of value for financial advisors. But when 72% of advisors claim that creating a new financial plan is a long and tedious process, how can you create value by meeting many different needs at scale across your client base? In their attempts to meet those very needs of their client base, many advisors and firms have added new technology to their advice offering. But in the end, for many of them, it's added complexity, it's added costs, and it's added a disjointed client and advisor experience. At the same time, client demand for planning is only increasing. 55% of client households value an advisor who takes the time to understand their unique needs and goals. So the need for personalized, dynamic plans that help clients prepare for every life stage really continues to grow. And in response to this, advisors themselves are expected to offer comprehensive ongoing planning advice to nearly 60% of their clients in 2019. As a technology provider, we know that advisors are going to need to meet increasing client needs and expectations by streamlining the process they have for creating financial plans. To help with this, financial planning tools need to be flexible, they need to be scalable, and they need to be able to meet these broad range of client needs, all while providing an intuitive and efficient process for the firms using them and an interactive and engaging experience for collaboration with their clients. To help you address the broad range of planning needs and attract more clients, we're excited to introduce foundational planning. This edition will give you the tools you need to better serve a more diverse group of clients from a single financial planning solution. Foundational planning enables advisors and firms of all sizes to engage clients in planning-led relationships through an intuitive and scalable solution. Our goal was to create a planning solution for a client's essential needs and goals through a more consolidated end-to-end experience. From data gathering through plan presentation, the experience is easy to navigate and understand, but also thorough enough to act as the foundation for a planning-led relationship. Our step-by-step foundational planning workflow promotes meaningful client conversations that are aligned with their life and wealth goals, while streamlining the financial plan creation by requiring fewer data inputs. Additionally, you'll have the flexibility to both isolate single topics, like an education goal, for example, to promote focused client conversations, or to step back and look at the whole plan. Ultimately, you'll be building holistic financial plans either in bite-sized pieces or all at once. The choice is yours. Foundational planning also provides a space for interactive side-by-side scenario planning, inclusive of Monte Carlo-based results, that will allow for a simple and collaborative conversations to handle the many what-ifs in life. Lastly, and importantly, when combined with our existing advanced planning capabilities, foundational planning enables you to scale financial planning in eMoney across your entire practice or firm through a single platform, maintaining a consistent experience for you and your clients and eliminating the need for multiple planning technologies. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Erin to allow her to show you foundational planning in action. Erin?
I'll be taking you through the tool today. So we have created a new sample client to help showcase foundational planning, and that's who we'll be working with today. We have Katie and Tim Stevens. Just a little bit on their background. Katie and Tim are successful young professionals, both under 40, with a combined net worth of just under $1 million. Currently, they're saving for both retirement and education for their 2 children, but they're not quite on track to achieve either of those goals. I first want to show you how you can switch from advanced planning to foundational planning and vice versa if you have both tools. So when we click on our client's name in the top left corner here, a pop-up will appear where we can choose what type of planning client this is. When you select an option, you'll be asked to confirm after a brief description of what that type of planning entails. Now, what's nice about this is if you can actually toggle back and forth between foundational planning and advanced planning without any loss of data. So if you have a client that you've been using advanced planning with, but you think they might be a better fit for foundational, you can switch them over but still retain all the information you entered when they were an advanced planning client. That way, down the road, if you decide to change them back as their needs become more complex, you don't have to worry about re-entering any of that data. So let's go ahead and we'll click into our Plans tab to access the tool itself. And here's where you'll notice one of the first differences that occur when you switch your client over to foundational planning. Here, when you click into the Plans tab, you only have access to that foundational planning tool. So those cash flow planning tools like Goal Planner, Decision Center, Distribution, and Advanced Planning are no longer here. However, again, if you were to switch them back to Advanced Planning, all of your existing facts and plans will remain as they were, so no data would be lost. I also want to talk a little bit about some of the other differences when it comes to foundational versus advanced planning. So today, eMoney's methodology for advanced planning is full cash flow. That means all income sources and expense sources are itemized and projected annually. At the end of the year, any surplus income that can be added to savings and investments, but for any shortage, the amount needed to cover expenses will be withdrawn from assets. That's different from foundational planning. With foundational, full cash flow only begins at retirement. So throughout pre-retirement, the focus is really just on asset accumulation and goals. We assume the annual income is adequate to cover the annual spending. So those components, including taxes, are ignored. That means we don't account for any annual cash flow, surplus, or shortage, and instead we're just focusing again on investment growth, savings to investment accounts, and withdrawals specifically for goals. So not to harp on it too much, but just to summarize, pre-retirement cash flow model is not used. The assumption is that income is sufficient to pay for all expenses, and in retirement, we do use that cash flow model. Any shortage, we'll use the liquidation strategy currently used in the existing cash flow planning model. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about our Plans tab here. On our overview page, we see 2 columns. We have our current situation and our proposed plan to the right if there's one in place. The current situation will display any information that was entered into the facts, and also if you edit any information in the current situation, that will flow through to your client's facts. So it's bidirectional. At the top of the current situation, we have their overall probability of success based on the data that was entered. To the right, we have our planning center. So you'll see in a moment, but that allows you to adjust any goals and apply techniques to your client's base case to bring them closer to their desired results. First, let's hone in on our current situation. So each section here has a self-contained workflow. It's a more streamlined process, and you can use this area to review what was already entered into the facts or enter data directly through foundational planning. And that's important to note because it does differ from advanced planning, where you aren't able to make changes to the base case from the Plans tab. Here you can. Okay, so let's open up our profile. Our profile module contains basics, family and friends, and income. We have a nice 1, 2, 3 up here at the top that kind of lets you know how far you are from completing this module. This section is going to be our client's name, date of birth. We highlight that. We want to make this page as clean as possible. However, if you need to enter additional information, we do have the option to expand out here to enter things such as their contact information. Another area that's important here, if you'll be doing education planning, you may want to select your client's state of residence. That would impact how we estimate in-state versus out-of-state tuition if you're using our database, the National Center for Education Statistics, and choosing a specific school for that child. All right, we'll just follow our workflow here at the bottom and we'll click Next Step. That's going to save our information and move us along in the process. Now we're taking a look at our family and friends. Our sample client here already has 2 children entered, Ava and Jack. It works similar to what you're used to in basic facts, meaning anything that's a blue hyperlink, you can open up and enter in information, and you always have that add button to add additional family and friends if you need to. Okay, moving along, now we're going to take a look at our client's income. So we have Katie and Tim's salary entered here. Again, we're keeping the most important information up front, but we can expand out different sections if we need to get more detailed with our client. Here we have things like our inflation, when does this income stream start and stop, and who is the owner. Also want to mention we have a note here at the bottom that says this income section doesn't include Social Security, and that's because that's going to be included in our retirement goal, which we'll take a look at in a moment. From there, we'll just return to our plan overview. So we're back to that page that we were at previously, and we can move on to our next module. If we open up net worth, this is going to be a consolidated look at our balance sheet. So we have our assets, our liabilities, out-of-estate assets like those 529 plans. And then down below, something a little bit different here than what you may be used to, we also have our clients' savings and contributions all here on one page for you to access. Once you've reviewed this information with your client, then you can return to your plan overview. Okay, let's take a look at our goals section. Here we'll see a list of any existing goals along with the overall probability of success for each of those goals. So looking at Monte Carlo there, I will go ahead and open up our retirement goal, and you'll see that each goal has a 3-step workflow. So you'll always start by setting the goal, setting the funding, and then reviewing the current situation or how on track they are. So first, setting the goal. For retirement, what age does your client want to retire? What is our estimated life expectancy? And how much are we estimating they'll spend annually in those retirement years? Can move into our next step, and we'll talk about what's funding that retirement. Here we have Tim's salary because he is working an extra year while Katie is in retirement, so we have that shown at the top, but then down below we'll get into that Social Security. So you can model Social Security here the same ways that you're used to. You can estimate it based on their income, you can manually enter it, and then you'll choose when that benefit begins. Down below we'll see what retirement accounts are earmarked specifically for that goal, and then any other accounts that can be used as well if we expand that out. Okay, next step, we're reviewing the goal. So we have 3 different charts that you can use to see how they're tracking. The first one is our summary. This displays percentage funding from a straight line perspective and any shortfall of the goal. So we can see our shortfall here, it's about negative $4.6 million. The next chart we have is our details chart. This shows the asset amount for this goal year over year, similar to what you might be used to in Decision Center. And it's also showing when each retirement starts and how many years that continues on for. Next, we have our probability of success. So these are our Monte Carlo results based on 1,000 trials, just like with any of our other tools that have Monte Carlo. And we're taking into account, our market volatility here. And we can see the client fully funds this goal only 36% of the time, so only 360 trials out of 1,000. We also have a nice link here, chart info. That's just going to break down a little bit of a description for each of those if you need it. Okay, so let's go back to our goals overview and talk about one of our education goals. So I'll open up Ava's education. Same workflow here. Again, you set the goal, fund the goal, and then review it. So here we have Ava's education. She plans on going to University of Virginia. We're calculating that estimated annual amount for her. We could adjust the inflation rate if we wanted to, or the rate that we're indexing it at. And then we have our next step. So how are we funding this goal? We already know Ava has a 529 plan. If we wanted to add any additional funding sources, we could do that. And then if there were any outside funding sources, grants, scholarships, money from the grandparents, we could include that here. Okay, finally we're getting to the review process. So is Ava's education goal on track or not? So same charts that we just took a look at, we can have a nice summary and take a look at what that shortfall might be. We have our details chart, straight line not factoring in any volatility, just looking at the dedicated assets over time, and the orange shows when that goal is set to start. And then we get to our probability of success. So the chart looks a little bit different in education than it did in retirement, but we're still viewing how funded this goal would be based on an average, above average, or below average market. So you have 3 different options to view. And if you want to know what we consider above average or below average, you can also just hover over this question mark here. So above average, for example, that would be our 80th percentile. Okay, go back to our goals overview one more time. I just want to show you that you can also add any additional spending goals that the client might have. We have some pre-built templates here, or if you want, you can just use other as kind of a catch-all for any spending goal. Okay, let's return to our plan overview. We have one more section before we move into how to build out our proposed plans. That's our asset allocation. So this is similar to the asset allocation section in the basic fact finder. We have our current allocation versus our recommended allocation. And the default is to look at all the client's assets, but we can choose to view different groupings or specific accounts if we'd like. To the right, our client can take a risk assessment, and then based on their answers, that would assign a portfolio for the recommended allocation. Otherwise, you can just choose an allocation that you're comfortable with. And then you have the option to view high-level or detailed view. So here's a look at what our detailed view looks at. At the top of each, you'll have the blended rate of return and then your risk or standard deviation. Okay, returning to our plan overview. So from there, now that we've reviewed the client's base case, we can move into the plan section. Now, since we are working with a sample client, they already have a recommended plan in place. But when you come in here, the first thing you would want to do is create a new plan, and that's going to make a carbon copy of their current situation. So I'm going to create a new plan. Okay, so let's talk about what we see on this page here. To the left-hand side, we'll see each of the goals that we entered into the goals module. On the right-hand side, we have our current situation, overall probability of success, as well as our recommended plan. But we also have some different views that we can look at here. So we already have a look at the Monte Carlo. The next is our percent funded. So just looking at how funded we are if our asset growth is based on the fixed rate of return for each asset, not factoring in any market volatility. And then we also have our available assets. This is just showing our available assets year by year, again, using a fixed rate of return without any market volatility. We also have our goal metric versus our plan metric. So we can take a look at the health of the goal individually, or the overall health of the plan. And I'll show you how that can come into play during your client's meeting. First, I want to take a look at Jack's education. I know we had a significant shortfall when it came to his education goal, partially because that 529 plan was pretty underfunded. So let's see what changes we can make in our proposed plan to try and meet that probability or increase that probability of success. So if we scroll down, we can see what was entered in their base case on the left, and to the right, we can make any adjustments we need to. See that Jack is going to or planning to go to Drexel University. We have that for 4 years. We're estimating that annual amount. If we wanted to, we could make adjustments. If we keep going down, we see what accounts are funding this goal. So by clicking into that, I'll see that 529 plan. Maybe I want to fund this goal with some additional accounts, fund any shortfall. I'm going to select the client's joint brokerage account. We'll click Done. Down below, I could also maybe increase their contributions into that 529 plan. And just like in the current situation, I could also account for any outside funding. If I scroll back up, I'll see a nice view of the before and after. So we'll see the blue here is the before and after. Now we see that Jack's education is getting funded. However, this is where that plan metric can really come into play. So we want to see what the give and take was. By funding Jack's education, did our overall plan health take a hit? By clicking on plan metric, I can see now where that gray is, that's the difference here. So it did take a little bit of a hit. Now maybe I want to click into my retirement, see what sacrifices I need to make there to help compensate so that we are funding Jack's education. So I'm going to click into retirement. Now I'm seeing all the variables specifically for that goal. I'm going to see what happens if our clients retire a few years later. We'll also maybe reduce their annual expenses a little bit during retirement. I could make changes to their Social Security, maybe delay a little bit if I wanted to. Down below, I can even see, okay, what retirement accounts do they have? Again, I can expand out and see what other savings accounts they have as well. And then even further down, I could adjust their contributions. So maybe I'll increase their contributions into those savings accounts or retirement accounts. When I scroll up, now I'll see the difference. So again, I'll see that before and after using the available assets charts, blue being the before, green being the after with the changes that I implemented. I can adjust this. Maybe I want to look at this from a Monte Carlo perspective. You just need to make sure you're hitting that recalculate button, and then it's going to run those 1,000 trials. Okay, so we're looking a lot better. Once you and your client have discussed the changes, if it's something that you both agree to, what you can do is you can set this as an active plan. I'll scroll down to the bottom here. By setting this as an active plan, now when I come into the Plans tab, that's the plan that I'll see here. That's how I know that that's what we're working towards. Okay, so the meeting is complete. We also have something a little bit more tangible. If you want some reports or a report package that you can send your client home with or maybe send to their vault for them to access from their client website. We can access that by hitting our Go to Presentation. It's already built for you, so we try to make it easy. You can see a list of the reports here on this page. You can exclude any that maybe weren't relevant to this meeting just by unchecking them. And then you have your download and archive here. That's what will send it to the vault or allow you to print it. I'm just going to hit View Online Presentation and show you a couple of these here. The first few reports are just review reports, just kind of summarizing what was in that base case. So we have our profile page, our net worth, and then our goals. So the goals will show each individual goal at the bottom with the individual probability of success, and then the overall plan probability at the top. Next, we have our plan changes. So this will show the base case and the proposed plan side by side. And what's nice is it summarizes the changes that you made in that proposed plan. So basically what you discussed in that meeting. If we keep going, we're going to start to just isolate the individual goals. And we'll see a nice side by side there as well. Okay, so outside of this pre-built deliverable, we do have some additional reports that provide a little bit of a deeper analysis, and those are located within your Reports tab. So I'll click All Reports on the left-hand side here. We condensed this list of reports, so we eliminated any extraneous reports that weren't relative, made it a little bit more streamlined. You have 10 reports available to you here. I'll start by opening up our cash flow. So since the cash flow only begins at retirement, you'll notice that this cash flow report starts at retirement years. So we're assuming that the annual income is adequate to cover annual spending pre-retirement, but we are still accumulating based on investment growth and savings into those investment accounts. And I'll show you how you can take a look at that. But just want to point out, this is pretty much the same cash flow report that you're already comfortable with. You can dive into each of these columns if you'd like a little bit more of a granular view. But if we do want to see our client's savings, we have a savings sub-report. And this one will show pre-retirement. So if we scroll down, we can see what our client is saving into their retirement accounts. We can also see what their employer is contributing as well. And then the last report I want to show you here is our assets report. So this is another one that will show the asset accumulation pre-retirement. So we can see all of our clients' assets growing year by year. Right now they're grouped, but we can also dive in and take a look at the individual accounts if we wanted to. If you want to generate one of these reports to print it or to share it with your client through the website, you just hit the Generate button in the top right corner here and you can download it or send it to Vault. Okay, last thing I want to touch on here is just what you would do in order to graduate your client to advanced planning. So as your client's case becomes a little bit more complex, if you feel the need to switch them back to those cash flow tools, all you would do is click on their name again, like I showed you in the beginning, and then you'll switch them to advanced planning. Once you do that, again, you'll retain all of your information. You won't lose any data. But then when you click into the Plans tab, you'll have access again to the Goal Planner, the Decision Center, Distribution Center, and the Advanced Planning tool. All right, so we have some additional time now to open it up to questions. And I think we mentioned that we are entering questions into the chat. Give me a second and we'll pull those up.
All right, thanks everyone, and thanks Aaron for the demo. That was really great. So we'd like Aaron said, we'd like to open for questions now. If you have questions, enter them through the Q&A tab. We're going to pause briefly right now to make sure that we're capturing. Another question about use cases for foundational planning. What types of clients would best use foundational planning with? So foundational planning is really designed to help you introduce financial planning to more clients. As an example, we're seeing users scale their current planning offering by using it with clients who are new to financial planning, to engage next generation clients, to engage prospects, and to plan for more mass affluent clients. It ultimately serves as a valuable tool for advisors who are looking to enable themselves with the full spectrum of planning options to clients or to those who are just beginning to incorporate planning into their services. Just for some clarification around how we're calculating things here, because we are getting some questions around that. We are not running a cash flow projection pre-retirement. We're assuming that all pre-retirement income is covering all other pre-retirement expenses like living expenses, liability payments, taxes. There's no end-of-year shortage or surplus to manage. So pre-retirement, we're really only concerned with, at a high level, investment assets, how they grow by way of market growth or by way of savings into those assets, and then what goal expenses they're paying for. So in terms of savings, there's no reconciliation at the end of the year that says you can or can't afford to save $10,000 into a given account. It's an asset accumulation story, and that validation of am I actually able to save that much money has to be done between the advisor and the client. When we get into retirement, then we're running full cash flow projection, just as we do today. So that's the biggest difference from a calculation perspective. There were some questions around the charts and how much detail you're able to see. So in the modules that Aaron was walking you through, there actually are data tables underneath those charts to be able to see the detail behind those charts for those that are inclined to do so. In the future, we'll also be adding more of this visibility into the scenario planning area as well. Ultimately, we want folks who need more detail to be able to get there without much effort. So this is absolutely on our radar to continue to enhance going forward. So I'm going to try and address a bunch of questions at once here. There's a lot of questions around how does this affect the client portal? How does it affect client onboarding? How does it affect model portfolios and capital market assumptions? We haven't really changed anything with any of that. From a client's perspective, nothing has changed here. They'll continue to see the same experience on their client site. Certainly, if you're using foundational planning, those calculations will permeate, and the goals tab, for example, will show results that match the advisor's results in foundational planning. But the experience that they have is not changing at all. So they still have access to all those features. From a capital market assumptions perspective, in terms of defining and creating model portfolios and managing all of that detail, that's all still there as well. That has not changed as part of foundational planning. So there's some questions around the goal metric versus the plan metric. We created the two so that you had the ability to both view the plan at a high level and kind of like take that 30,000 foot step back, but also tunnel into a specific goal at any given time to get really granular about a goal. So the goal metric, from a probability of success perspective, really represents what is the probability that you'll fully fund your goal. But from a plan perspective, at a high level, it's does your money last through life expectancy? It's really how we calculate success today in advanced planning. We've added help tooltips and help text in several places throughout foundational planning that explain some of these concepts. So to the extent that you need some more information, they are there in the application. So there's some questions around other planning topics that folks aren't seeing here right now. Life insurance is one of those. We're actually working towards life insurance right now. We're building a life insurance gap analysis that will come out later this year. At a high level here, our goal is to continue enabling more planning discussions to happen here, similar to those that would happen in advanced planning. The difference is the depth of the conversation. We view these as being more lightweight, quick conversations, but the content, not all that different. So for example, I think it's unlikely that you end up seeing a super detailed estate planning conversation in foundational planning, but could we enable a conversation around, do you have a will, do you have a power of attorney, and all those checklist items that go with the estate conversation. So we really see a lot of the same conversations happening in foundational planning, and we'll build towards that. The depth of it will just be a good bit different than it is in advanced planning. Entering facts, we've built a streamlined process here for doing so within foundational planning. For those current users, or really for anyone, but for those familiar with the functionality, the fact finder will still be there, the basic fact finder and the advanced fact finder. So should that be an experience that you're used to and enjoy entering data that way and you find it easier to do so? By all means, you can continue to do that. And foundational planning and the fact finder will remain in sync from a base facts perspective. With foundational planning, we've simply lifted out the required inputs, the things that we want folks to focus on, and put those front and center rather than forcing you to go through the fact finder and wade through all the detail there. So it really just comes down to a matter of preference at that point. As far as moving from foundational planning to advanced planning, the base facts remain. They're always there. There's no need for duplicate data entry. This is very much all on the same platform. So it's not like you're entering data into some separate tool that remains separate from the application. So if you enter data in base facts, it's going to stay there. If you go to advanced planning, it'll still be there. If you entered into advanced planning and went back to foundational for whatever reason with a client, it would still be there. The scenarios are separate right now. So a foundational planning scenario is different from an advanced planning scenario. In the future, we'll build the ability for you to copy or take a foundational planning scenario from foundational planning over to advanced planning to use as a starting point if you wish. Obviously, the calculations will be different, but to be able to use the work that you started with foundational planning as a jumping off point in advanced planning, we'll build towards that in the future. So foundational planning is currently available to purchase. You can call sales to access. You can sign up for a free trial through sales by calling the number on the screen right now. It's not included in your current eMoney subscription, so if you were to log in today, you wouldn't just see it there. With the launch of foundational planning, we also introduced new product packages. That's where foundational planning can be found. Each package has been built to appeal to an advisor's individual planning needs. So foundational planning is available to purchase through what we call our eMoney Plus package or our eMoney Premier package. Those are all new. So to get more information on where you can get access to foundational planning and how much it costs, call the number on your screen to set up time to talk with the sales rep. The other one we're getting lots of questions about still is regarding other functionality outside of foundational planning. As you'll see in those conversations with sales, the base platform of eMoney includes a bunch of the things you'd expect it to include. Things like capital market assumptions, the client portal, the onboarding pieces, the screen sharing pieces, all of the stuff that kind of makes up the shell of eMoney will all be there as part of foundational planning, even if you only ever purchase just foundational planning. So just to answer a couple other questions in here, foundational planning is very much obviously part of our future strategy here at eMoney, but that doesn't mean that advanced planning is not. We are absolutely making strides towards other enhancements in advanced planning and excited for some things to come this year in regards to that. I'm not going to spill too many beans at this point, but definitely keep your eyes out on our communications. We are making improvements there. We've done a lot of work, frankly, over the past year to put in place, to put us in a good place to deliver on enhancements here. So both foundational planning and advanced planning are absolutely part of our go-forward strategy here. We're committed to delivering really the full spectrum of planning on eMoney's platform. And to be able to do that, we know that there's a long roadmap of enhancements and product suggestions ahead of us to deal with. And things like our request a feature forum are really useful tools in making sure that we're delivering on the right things at the right time. So I think we're going to wrap it up at this point. This concludes our presentation today, and we really appreciate you all joining us and engaging with us in the Q&A. As a reminder, recording of today's webinar will be emailed to you next week. If you have additional questions or if there's anything we didn't answer and you'd like to sign up for a demo of foundational planning or just talk to someone and ask questions, please call us at that number on the screen, 888-362-4612, and someone will be able to help you get the answers you need. Thanks a lot again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.